Hey, what's up, everyone? It's Kyle Henderson and Andrew Bone coming to you from Tuscaloosa, Alabama. Hope everyone's doing well. Last week, I was down at the beach, got some relaxing time in with the fam. Today, we're back talking Alabama Crimson Tide football with Andrew Bone. J.C. Latham is in. Gigantic pickup for Alabama. Let's just start there. We already dove into it plenty on, last week when he committed. Let's just kind of reiterate how big of a commitment that was.
Yeah, it's huge. I mean, getting a player of his caliber on board, definitely a guy that Alabama has heavily targeted for a long time. Kyle Flood, Charles Huff kind of took control of that recruitment and won a huge commitment. I mean, this is a guy who everyone assumed was going to Ohio State from day one. Everyone had him locked in until I guess those last few days until he announced that decision. We put in that prediction on I think on Sunday night, and he committed about 5 days later to Alabama. So, huge pickup. I mean, future left tackle, potentially right tackle, but I think he ends up playing left tackle. He's 6'6", 285 pounds. You're probably not going to find a prospect as pretty as him in the country. I mean, he's a guy who played defensive line throughout his high school career, and then finally made that transition to offensive line this past season, and had a great season. Just like I said, 1 year in as an offensive lineman, and I think his best days are certainly ahead of him. And he's currently rated as number 75 overall in the Rivals 100. That's going to change. People need to quit freaking out about that and saying, "Oh, he's a 5-star here, 5-star there." Rivals has not done a complete overhaul of the rankings because of COVID-19. That's going to happen. Probably mid-season. Once the recruiting analysts can go out on the road, evaluate guys, see players throughout the country, and then finally make a big adjustment with all the rankings. I got a feeling J.C. Latham certainly going to be one of the top overall players in the country, potentially a top 10 overall player right now or in the future. So keep an eye on that, but I certainly think he's potentially Alabama's best commitment, and could be Alabama's best commitment come signing day.
Hey, Bone. So I wanted to let everybody know. I know we've received your feedback, and we read the comments. We go through all the feedback right here on BamaInsider.com. I know when the calls come in, sometimes it interrupts Andrew. I don't like how that's formatted. Neither does Andrew. Neither do you. So what we're going to do tonight, and until we fix our technology call-wise, you're going to post your recruiting questions in the comment box. I'll relay them to Andrew, and we'll get your recruiting questions answered. Bone, we got one right here from Jack, and this is, where does Alabama stand with William Griffin Parker?
Yeah, William Griffin Parker, a offensive lineman out of Nashville. Not a lot of people have talked much about him. He got an offer, actually several months ago. He's not a guy that just got an offer or anything like that, and everybody's just all of a sudden talking about him. He got an offer several months ago from Alabama, and for one reason or another, we just hadn't been talking about him. We hadn't said, he's on Alabama's radar. We've been talking about all these other guys like J.C. Latham and the Brockermeyer twins and the guys out of Georgia like T.J. Ferguson and Marius Mims. We just kind of forgot about William Griffin Parker. Well, he's a guy who has a committable offer from Alabama, a little bit closer to home. So I definitely think that Alabama has a great chance with him. I mean, you look at Alabama's class right now, and you have one offensive line commitment. Alabama's trying to get at least 5 offensive line commitments in this class. He could easily be one of those guys that I could see in this class, potentially joining up with J.C. Latham, potentially the Brockermeyer twins, and maybe one or two other guys.
All right, Bone, we got another one in. This is from our good friend Johnny. He's asking about an update on Tristan Lay.
Yeah, Tristan Lay is a one of the top offensive linemen in the country, out of the Virginia area. Obviously, Alabama recruits that DMV area extremely well. His name has kind of jumped out a little bit the last couple weeks, and there was an interview with him on Rivals the other day saying how Alabama was kind of really getting back into the picture with him. Yeah, I'm not there yet. I think Alabama's recruiting him. Are they, going full steam like they were with J.C. Latham and the Brockermeyers and Mims and Ferguson? I don't think they're there yet, regardless of how highly he's ranked at this time. I just don't see it. I think Alabama's slowly getting into it, slowly kind of seeing what's there, and gauging the interest, and also just kind of figuring out what's going to happen the rest of the way. But I think there's some other guys that are a little bit ahead of them. They're going to wait on those guys, but we could potentially see him in this class. Like I said, I think Alabama takes 5 offensive linemen. I think he's a little bit behind some other guys. Don't worry about his ranking. I know everybody looks at him and says, "Oh, he's number 28 overall." Take him over some of these other guys. That's just not the case. Alabama, I think they wanted to evaluate him a little bit more this summer, bring him in, to the summer camp, but obviously that's not happening this year. So it's still kind of a wait and see approach. You continue to evaluate him this upcoming football season, continue to maintain that relationship. But I think as of right now, Alabama's probably going to wait, see what happens with some of these other guys, because but I would say probably a month or so ago, nobody thought J.C. Latham was going to be a part of this recruiting class. We weren't talking about him 3 months ago as potentially being a part of it, and now he is. So now you got to kind of wait and see what happens with some of these other guys, because obviously they're not going to say no to the Brockermeyer twins. They're not going to say no to Amarius Mims. They're not going to say no to they're not going to say no to TJ Ferguson. There's some other guys out there. William Parker Griffin, as we mentioned earlier, Jager Burton, another offensive lineman that Alabama has a lot of interest in out of Kentucky. Eric Cade, who's an offensive tackle out of Texas that Alabama really likes a lot. These are some guys that I think Alabama has evaluated. They have on their big recruiting board. They're kind of waiting to see what happens, and then they kind of go on to the next guys. But I would keep an eye on Tristan Lee, though. I mean, obviously, with Alabama showing interest, continuing to recruit him, it shows that they are definitely interested in him, and they just haven't. He's not off the recruiting board at all. He's still on it. They're recruiting him. We'll see what happens.
All right, Bone, we got another one coming in. So everybody wants to know about the silent commitments, right? Are there any silent commitments? I know you've talked about Kendrick Blackshire plenty. What's the latest on him? And, and kind of explain like the silent commitment approach.
Yeah, I hate silent commitments because there were 2 guys that were silently committed in last year's recruiting class that ended up going somewhere else, and it seems to happen every single year. This guy or that guy has silently committed to Alabama. You never feel comfortable about that. You never feel why are you silently committed? Why don't you just go out and say I'm committed to your program? Some situations are different than others. Some situations are, well, I'm waiting for a awesome graphic so I can post it on social media, or I'm waiting on a video crew to shoot this video so I can post it. Some of these other guys are just, I'm committed to you guys. I'll announce it whenever I get a chance. And sometimes those guys lose the opportunity to commit, and we saw that happen last year with at least one player in particular. But it does happen with Kendrick Blackshire. I feel very confident picking Alabama for him. I think he's going to end up being a part of Alabama's recruiting class. I think that will pretty much end, in my opinion, the inside linebacker class. You have Deontay Lawson, Ian Jackson, 2 in-state guys. I think both of those guys are inside linebackers. Deontay Lawson could play either or. He could play outside, could play inside, but at 6'3", 215 pounds right now in high school, easily grow into an inside linebacker. And you add Kendrick Blackshire to the mix. I mean, unbelievable class at the inside linebacker position. I know that there's still some other guys that are out there that they're recruiting, but as of right now, really like Alabama's chances with Kendrick Blackshire. I put him the other day, I guess it was on Monday, I put a story out on who's next. I listed about 7 guys who I could see making decisions here pretty soon. He was at the top of the list for a specific reason. It's because I feel like he's going to be the next one to jump on board. I really like Alabama's chances with him, and I would be shocked if he committed anywhere else, and I'd be shocked if it lasted much longer.
All right, Bone, this next one. And before I get into it, there's a lot of people that are always wondering, how can we support BamaInsider.com? You guys like the work that Andrew does. You guys like the work that I do. You guys like the work that Tony does. The Bama Insider staff, we appreciate it. And we like to be here. There's several ways. You can become a subscriber on BamaInsider.com. The free 30-day promo code is simply Roll Tide. Go to BamaInsider.com. The other way is you can become a premium member of YouTube. See the description in the comment box. Or the third way is super chats. You can go right now on YouTube. You can super chat, and any super chat right now gets their question read immediately on this show. So look for the super chat tab right in the comment section on YouTube. Bone, Paul asks, this is a great question. Can you preview where things stand with the major defensive line targets? Payne, Keenan Turner, Goodwine, Jackson. I mean, it's a good question with the defensive linemen. If you could kind of dive into where things stand with the defensive line targets for Alabama.
Yeah, that's a great question. Obviously Alabama's always wanting to reload on the defensive front, and there's some top guys out there that Alabama probably feels like they're in pretty good shape with, and guys that have been leaning towards Alabama for some time. Like Damon Payne from Michigan, who we feel like is probably going to end up at Alabama. Now, what we've been hearing a lot lately, he really likes Kentucky a lot. Kentucky ended up signing top player in the state of Michigan last year, and Justin Rogers, who's another defensive lineman. He's been heavily recruiting Damon Payne to join him in Lexington, but Payne has visited Alabama 4 or 5 times already. Even though he's from Michigan, he's spent a lot of time down in Tuscaloosa, and I feel like they've got a great chance to get him on board. Monkel Goodwine, another guy that seems to have been favoring Alabama from the get-go since last summer when he camped down in Tuscaloosa. I still feel like Alabama is the team to beat for him. And Tim Keenan, an in-state guy that's always felt like he's going to commit at any moment, even though he keeps saying that he's going to wait until signing day to announce. Still believe that Alabama's in great shape to get him. Now, there's some other big names that are out there. Tumise Adelie, the 5-star defensive end who's committed to Ohio State. I still feel like Alabama's got a shot there. I think they're going to be able to get him back on campus. Now, he's still says he's 100% committed, but also says he's going to still take visits. So, that's somebody that you have to continue to watch. Lee Hunter, who's committed to Auburn, out of Pritchard, Alabama. That's another guy that Alabama's continuing to show interest in. And those are some of the kind of the interior defensive linemen. I know Paul mentioned a couple, defensive ends, Shamar Turner out of Texas, Khyree Jackson out of Orlando. Definitely feel like Alabama's strongly in it with those guys. I think with Khyree Jackson may wait until the season. There's a chance Shamar Turner might decide before the season starts. If he decides to go out of state, now he's from Texas. If he decides to go out of state, I really like Alabama's chances, but they're going to have to fight these the in-state programs like Texas and Texas A&M for him. With Khyree Jackson, I think it's going to end up coming down to Alabama and Florida State for him. But I think Alabama's got a chance to really have a great defensive line class, even though they only have one defensive line commitment right now in Anquin Barnes out of Montgomery, out of Lee High School, Montgomery. I think the rest of the way, it's going to get really good.
Bone, we got another one. This one is coming in from Colby, and I like this question right here. Do you see Alabama still ending up in a top 5 recruiting class? I mean, it seems like they just continue to get more momentum as we continue to cruise into the summertime. It seems like Nick Saban clearly isn't done. What do you think about top 5 chances in the Rivals recruiting rankings?
Don't bet against Alabama. I just everyone is talking about all these other schools. And they did this last year too. Alabama was not really talked about this. This time last year, everybody was talking about Clemson, Georgia, who was going to finish number 1. And Alabama came close. I think they finished number 3. But I think they're going to finish very strong in this year's recruiting class, especially when the rankings get updated. You're going to see a lot of movement. You're going to see guys who are 5 stars right now who are going to drop significantly. You're going to see guys who are 4 stars and 3 stars rise significantly. So when you see that happen, when all these rankings get updated, when Alabama starts getting a lot of their top guys on board, you got to remember a lot of their top targets are still out there. Even guys who are committed elsewhere right now still plan on taking visits to Alabama. I mentioned this earlier in a story that I wrote that we published on BamaInsider.com today. There were 8 guys in last year's recruiting class who were committed to another program at some point last year and ended up signing with Alabama. So if you don't think at least somebody's going to flip or decommit from a program in time with Alabama, I think that's crazy. I think that's certainly going to happen because it seems to happen every single year. And just feel like Alabama's in great shape with a lot of top players, and I think they're going to really make a strong move and really get into that top 5 and potentially even in the top 3. We'll just have to wait and see how the rest of the way goes. But I really like Alabama's chances the rest of the way.
Hey, Bone, in terms of Alabama being in good position with particular high-profile players, how about this one? Kool-Aid McKinstry. How are Alabama, things settling with one of the top targets on the board from an in-state target like McKinstry?
Yeah, well, obviously, Kool-Aid, the number 1 player in the state of Alabama. Everybody wants him. Everybody's heavily recruiting him. Has offers in football and basketball. He's top 5: Alabama, Auburn, Georgia, Clemson, and LSU. I think right now it's probably it seems like an Alabama LSU battle from everything we've heard. Auburn, I certainly believe they're strongly in it. But in my opinion, I think he ends up at Alabama. Now, when will he make that decision? We don't know. He says he could decide tomorrow, or he could decide on signing day, just whenever he feels ready. So it's hard to make a prediction exactly when he's going to commit. But I would probably be surprised if it went into the season. I think he's probably going to make a decision before his senior season. And as of right now, I'm still predicting him to Alabama.
All right, Bo, we got another one coming in. We got a ton of them, actually. So great feedback in the comment box. We sincerely appreciate it. Andrew does such a great job on the recruiting front. So we're always happy to get together on Tuesday night. Let's see. We got one from Michael. He's talking about Christian Leary, Malcolm Johnson, Brian Thomas. Can you talk about some of those wide receiver targets?
Yeah, well, I think Alabama's in great shape right now in terms of already having 2 big-time wide receiver commitments on board in Ja'Cory Brooks and Ajay Hall. I mean, getting 2 guys like that already on your commitment list, and obviously you're going to have to continue to fight for those guys and keep them on board. But who's going to be that next guy? Who could potentially end up Alabama missing out on? Excuse me. Christian Leary and Malcolm Johnson. I've been saying for the last probably month or so, I'll be shocked if Alabama doesn't get one of those guys. Christian Leary, he seemed like an Oklahoma lean for a long time. Then he kind of started seeming like an Alabama lean. Everybody now is saying he's an Auburn lean, and people think he's probably going to stay in Florida. So it's kind of an unknown right now. I think Alabama still has a great chance there. I think Alabama has a great chance with Malcolm Johnson. So we'll be shocked if Alabama ends up not landing at least one of those guys. Brian Thomas has been an Alabama LSU battle for a long time. I hadn't really been hearing anything, a lot of positive things lately. There's a lot of talk about LSU with him kind of moving up his recruiting board. It was kind of been all Alabama, but over the last couple months, it seems like LSU's potentially moved ahead. So I think if he makes a decision in the next month or so, it's probably going to be LSU. But if he decides to hold off, wait a little bit longer, I think Alabama's got a great chance. Now, Deion Colzie, one of the top receivers in the country out of Georgia. Alabama's not really making a big push for him at this time. Another guy that I would keep an eye on is Destin Payson, out of Louisiana. Definitely a top guy that a lot of people aren't talking about, but has a committable offer from Alabama and somebody that they really like a lot. I'll tell you another guy to keep an eye on. And we don't even know if he's going to visit just yet. But JoJo Earl out of Texas. He's one of the fastest players in the country out of Aledo High School in Texas, same high school as Alabama freshman running back Jace McClellan, committed to LSU a couple months ago. I think Alabama's still in the mix there. I think they're still recruiting him, still trying to get him on campus for a visit. Now, look at LSU's recruiting class. They currently have 1 wide receiver commitment in Deion Smith out of Mississippi. Now, he was a guy that Alabama was recruiting, but I don't think they're really that much in the picture anymore after getting a couple big wide receiver commitments. They get Deion Smith on, or they have Deion Smith on board. Let's say they get Brian Thomas on board. There's another wide receiver in Louisiana that LSU's got a great chance to land, Chris Hilton. also in the mix for Alabama, but I think he ends up going to LSU. That's 4 wide receiver commitments. Does that potentially open things up with JoJo or Earl and say, hey, you know what? There are 4 wide receiver commitments on board. 2 of them are from Louisiana, one's from Mississippi. Maybe I need to go check out Alabama. So that's something I'd keep an eye on over the upcoming months. See if he ends up making a trip to Tuscaloosa, maybe in the fall. At least to come see his boy Jace McClellan play this fall.
All right, Bone. We got one coming in from Hunter, and he's asking about where does Alabama stand with Sorey?
Xavier Sorey, 6'3", 220-pound, defensive player. Actually just announced this week that he's transferring to IMG Academy from Graceville High School. A lot of people assume that's probably a good thing for Alabama, but hey, you got to keep one thing in mind about IMG Academy. A lot of top players at that school, and a lot of them are going to a lot of different schools. So, Alabama has had some success down there at IMG, and obviously they have JC Latham's committed, and I'm sure he'll be heavily pursuing him. The interesting thing about Sorey is, he's been recruited for the last year by Sal Sinceri. Well, now he gets Charles Huff, who becomes his area recruiter. Now, I assume Sal Sinceri will still be recruiting him, but now you have Sal and Coach Huff kind of tag teaming there to recruit Sorey. I think Alabama's certainly a top contender for him. Everyone's kind of predicting Alabama for him. Everybody, it's like 100% Alabama. I'm not there just yet. I think Alabama's got a great chance with him, like I said. But I'm kind of waiting to see, when does he make a decision? Will he decide? But maybe before some of these other guys do. You got to keep in mind, Alabama currently has 2 linebacker commitments in Ian Jackson and Deontay Lawson. Potentially get Kendrick Blackshire on board soon. That's 3 linebacker commitments. Let's say Alabama potentially gets Dallas Turner. That's 4 linebacker commitments. And then you got to kind of figure out who's going to be maybe the 5th guy. Is it going to be Xavier Sorey? Is it going to be Jeremiah Williams from Birmingham? Keno Coate out of Vero Beach. That's another guy that Alabama's been heavily recruiting. So I think what it's going to come down to is kind of who commits first. All those guys have committable offers. So I think it really becomes who commits first in the recruiting class. But love Sorey as a prospect, extremely athletic. It's going to be hard for Alabama to say no, even if they have 5 linebackers on the commitment board, but just came out with the top 5 about a week ago. So we know he's going to end up in the SEC: Alabama, Auburn, LSU, Georgia, and Florida. A lot of people think it may come down to Alabama and Florida. I think Georgia's certainly in the mix there as well. So we'll see how it goes and see when he gets ready to make a decision.
All right, we got our next question, and thank you very much for following us. If you don't super chat, if you don't have a membership to BamaInsider.com, the least you could do is give us a thumbs up. Certainly helps in the comment box. So you see the thumbs up, be sure and hit it right here on BamaInsider.com. Bone, you got another question coming in. This question is asking about Dallas Turner and the latest update on him.
Yeah, Dallas Turner, for those that don't know, one of the top defensive players in the country, out of St. Thomas Aquinas. Actually played at American Heritage in Plantation, Florida, the last couple of seasons, but transferred to St. Thomas Aquinas for his senior year. I mean, he had 15 sacks last season as a junior, was the defensive player of the year in Broward County. A big time target for Alabama, being recruited mainly as an outside linebacker, jack type player. Just go get the quarterback. That's what Alabama, wants him to do. Make big plays in the backfield, and he's got tremendous athleticism and somebody that Alabama really wants on their on this 2021 recruiting class. I believe Alabama's in the driver's seat for him at this time. Not sure exactly when he's going to make a decision. Now, there's been some speculation that he might decide in July. There's been some talk that he could potentially wait until the fall so that he can take some visits. Programs like Clemson, Georgia, really hoping he waits, because as of right now, Alabama's in the lead. I think he'll probably still take some visits even if he commits. But I like Alabama's chances right now. And I actually put in a future cast on Rivals.com for him to Alabama a couple, I guess it was probably about a month ago now. But I really like Alabama's chances there at this time.
All right, Bone. So the next question, everybody wants to know about the Brockermeyer twins. We get a question every single Tuesday about the Brockermeyer twins. Go for it. I mean, knock it out the park.
Yeah, Tommy and James Brockermeyer, two of the best offensive linemen in the country. Tommy rated number 10 overall in the Rivals 100. Big time player, 5-star recruit, offensive tackle. James, the little brother, he's only 6'4", 275, but he's rated as one of the top centers in the country. He's a member of the Rivals 250. Luckily those guys were able to sneak in a trip to Tuscaloosa back in February before COVID hit. Now both of them were going to visit Alabama in April, and they were going to come back again in June, and they were going to take some trips, to Texas and LSU and Auburn during that time as well, and then hopefully make a decision. Well, obviously they weren't able to do that. No visits are happening this summer. Still kind of waiting to see what happens in terms of, will they make a decision soon, or will they wait it out and take those visits? Obviously, I think every school outside of Alabama wants them to wait, because I feel like both those guys as of right now are heavy Alabama leans. Coach Kyle Flood, offensive line coach, has done a tremendous job there recruiting those guys. And I feel like as of right now, despite J.C. Latham's commitment to Alabama, I think Alabama's in the driver's seat. Like I said, if they'll commit before the season starts, I think they commit to Alabama. They wait it out, enjoy the process a little bit more. Maybe Texas gets back in it. Obviously, Texas is, the school that everybody, I guess maybe outside of Tuscaloosa feels like they're probably going to go to, just because of the legacy. The dad played there. They're from Texas. A lot of pressure to stay in state, but I think they can avoid that in-state pressure, and I think they can end up at Alabama, and that's where I predict both of them to go to right now.
All right, Bone. So our next question is from Taylor. He's asking about Kadarius Callaway and a couple different flips, if you can mention in this next segment. You had an article today on BamaInsider.com. Obviously, you don't have to, give away all the nuggets, but if you could talk about potential guys on Flip Watch.
Yeah, well, Kadarius Callaway out of Mississippi, Philadelphia, Mississippi, recruited mainly as a defensive back. It's committed to Mississippi State. And I think the biggest thing with, with all, not just Kadarius Callaway, but I think with all these guys who Alabama's trying to flip, is just getting them back on campus. Obviously, they weren't able to visit during the spring or the summer, so a lot of these guys are going to have to visit in the fall. Where will Alabama's class be by that time? We don't know. We don't know who's going to commit between now and then. So a lot of these guys that are flip candidates, I think they're going to have to revisit Alabama or visit Alabama for the first time and get a good feel. And then we'll kind of make a prediction there. But Alabama really likes Kadarius Callaway a lot. They're heavily recruiting him, as I mentioned, being recruited as a defensive back. But for right now, still committed to Mississippi State.
All right, moving on. Let's see who else we got here. Ton of questions to go through. Hunter again asking about Emmanuel Henderson. Good last name, by the way.
Yeah, I bet you like that. Is that any relation there?
Yeah, possibly so.
So Emmanuel Henderson is a 2022 running back from Geneva County High School here in Alabama. Has really kind of blown up over the last few months. Picked up several scholarship offers, and now I still feel like a lot of schools are wanting to see him a little bit more. Kind of get a good feel on him. Go see him this fall. Obviously, a lot of programs were hoping to get him on campus. This spring especially this summer, kind of see what he does in camp. What position will he potentially play? Because he plays running back, plays a little defensive back. Where's he going to end up playing in college? That's kind of still remains a question mark. So we'll see. Alabama likes him. He has an offer, got offered by Alabama a couple months ago, but I think they probably still want to see him a little bit more. Along with most of these 2022 guys that are out there, a lot of these guys that we've seen pick up offers over the course of the last several months. A lot of these guys are still guys that they want to see in camp, and then kind of go from there.
All right, Bonin. By the way, we got a nice super chat there for $1.99 from Hunter. So thank you so much, man. Appreciate it. How about this one, Bone? As everyone saw, Hudson Wolf committed to Tennessee, and we've been talking a lot about Robbie Oots. I hope I'm saying that right. I know we debated that, or at least you and Tyler did, right here on BamaInsider.com. What's the latest on his recruiting efforts, and kind of paint the backstory on him?
Yeah, so Robbie Oots is a very talented tight end out of Rock Hill, South Carolina. About 6'4", 200, about 40 pounds right now. He actually made a trip to Tuscaloosa last weekend, and this is it's a recruiting dead period. So everybody's probably wondering, oh, well, how is he able to make a trip to Tuscaloosa when it's a recruiting dead period? Recruits can come on campus, visit campus. They can't have any contact with coaches, so they're not necessarily on campus as a recruit. They're on campus more as I guess maybe you're passing through and just wanting to check the campus out. So I thought that was big. I thought that was really big for him to make a trip down to Tuscaloosa. I'm sure he's doing that with a few other programs, but I think getting him down there for the first time was very big, and he's certainly a guy that Alabama wants. They've been heavily recruiting tight ends. Pretty critical position of need in this year's recruiting class. Who's going to be that tight end in this class? We've talked about a lot of guys who are committed elsewhere. Hudson Wolf just committed to Tennessee. Now, I don't really think Hudson Wolf was. I don't think he was really in the running for Alabama, or Alabama was in the running for him when he made that decision. I think Alabama's kind of been behind, and I don't really think Alabama's been recruiting him that much lately. To be honest with you, I think Alabama's kind of been focused elsewhere because they felt like Hudson Wolf wasn't going there. So focused elsewhere on some guys that they feel like they've got a chance with. And Robbie Oots is certainly a guy that they like a lot. I feel like as of right, if I had to make a prediction right now, I'm not making a prediction, but if I had to make one right now, I'd probably put him in Alabama's class. There's some other guys that are out there still that are committed elsewhere that they're still trying to bring on campus for visits this fall. Jermaine Terry out of California, big time target for them, committed to Cal. Elijah Arroyo, who's committed to Miami. I think we're going to see both of those guys end up visiting Alabama again. At least Alabama's trying to get those guys to visit again. And then you've also got Jalen Sheed out of Mississippi, who just got offered by Alabama a couple days ago. So those are some guys that they really like at tight end. But Robbie Oots, a guy that I'm predicting as of right now in Alabama's class. So let's see how things go the rest of the way and how these visits go. But if I had to make a prediction right now, I'd say Robbie Oots is the guy.
I'm not predicting. I'm just saying.
I'm just saying.
Hey, so check this out. So we'll look at this for just a second. Andrew Bone is the GOAT. Love the channel. Well, first of all, we appreciate it, and I know Andrew certainly, he doesn't ask for much, but I'm telling you, Andrew certainly brings it every single day. So we appreciate all the thumbs up. But Bone, I want to ask you this, man. I mean, you do such a great job at BamaInsider.com. When you don't have to spend too much time on this, but I mean, your love for recruiting and the insightfulness. I mean, how long has it been? I know, but I want you to tell our subscribers out there, how long have you been covering Alabama Crimson Tide recruiting? And I mean, you certainly established yourself as the best in the business.
Well, I appreciate that. I started to cover recruiting in 2003.
2003.
It was actually Coach Mike Shula's first year coaching at Alabama. So we've gone through a few coaching changes, but it was it's been a fun ride. I mean, seeing the way that Alabama fans used to be excited when there was a 4-star recruit, even visiting Tuscaloosa, and now it's only 5- and 4-star recruits who commit to Alabama. So it's certainly been a fun ride, and it's certainly been an honor working alongside you at Bama Insider the last couple of years, and I couldn't ask for a better teammate than you. No doubt about it.
No doubt, man. No, we appreciate it. We enjoy being here, each Tuesday night. And I don't know if you guys just saw on BamaInsider.com, but Shadarius Townsend has announced his transfer to Texas Tech. You also had Tyrell Shavers, who announced just recently he's going to Mississippi State. So several transfers that we've been talking about on BamaInsider.com. So, of course, if you want the team coverage, go to BamaInsider.com. You can check out all our great articles by Tyler Waldrop and Tony Tsoukalis. I wear many different hats, as you know, and then Bone takes care of the recruiting. Let's see what else we got going through here on the recruiting channels. What about Dylan Brooks?
Yeah, Dylan Brooks out of Hanley High School in Roanoke, Alabama, committed to Tennessee. Alabama's still interested. Alabama's still recruiting him. He's still in communication with Alabama. And this is kind of what I said earlier in terms of, the linebacker commitments. How many linebackers is Alabama going to take? I think they're going to probably take 5 in this class. They have 2 right now. We believe Kendrick Blackshear is probably next to jump on board. Dallas Turner, certainly a guy that they want, that they're heavily recruiting. Dallas Turner, Dylan Brooks, Keno Coat, all kind of, very similar in terms of, what they do out there on the field. So, yeah, if Alabama gets Dallas Turner on board, if they potentially get Keno Coat on board, I don't know if Dylan Brooks is going to have a spot, but as of right now, still heavily pursuing him, still want him. But as of right now, I just don't see him in this class. I think he ends up probably sticking with Tennessee. That could potentially end up somewhere else, but we're continuing to keep an eye on him, and a lot's going to just depend on who decides to jump on board first. If Dallas Turner jumps on board, as we believe he will, that eliminates a spot, and that could potentially eliminate a spot for him.
All right, Bone. This next question, I'm curious in this next one. Which quarterback do you expect Alabama to sign? And I was thinking about this. Is it vital that Alabama signs a quarterback in this class? I mean, I know you said it before that they're probably going to, but you look at the roster at Alabama. I mean, you have Mac Jones, you got Bryce Young. Alabama fans are like, who cares about the next quarterback? They're set, but kind of fill us in on the quarterback situation.
Well, they said that. They said who cares who signs at quarterback when after Jalen Hurts had his his freshman year, and obviously they got lucky with Tua decided to come on board. So we'll see what happens. The biggest thing with Alabama right now is the guys that they're recruiting are all committed somewhere. Guys that have committable offers. Is it a top priority position? Not really. Do they want a quarterback? Absolutely. They definitely want to get a quarterback in this class. They had one in Drake May who committed to Alabama last summer. Now, the thing about Drake May is he committed to Alabama before Bryce Young did. So he was committed for, several months before Bryce Young decided to flip from USC to Alabama. Bryce Young signed with Alabama. Drake May in March decided to flip to North Carolina. So a lot of the guys that Alabama was interested in quarterback-wise outside Drake May, a lot of those guys had already made decisions, especially Jalen Milroe, who was probably heavily leaning towards Alabama last summer before Drake May committed. Now, everybody says, well, they should have taken Jalen Milroe instead of Drake May because better odds of him staying on board than May, since May is a UNC legacy. Well, you don't really know that. You don't know what the situation was going to be or what Drake May was going to do or what Jalen Milroe was going to do. Jalen Milroe could have thought the same thing. Okay, Bryce Young signed. I'm going to end up flipping to Texas. You just don't know what the situation was going to be. But Jalen Milroe still very much in play for Alabama, still in communication with Coach Sark. Alabama just recently offered Luke Altmaier out of Starkville, Mississippi. Currently committed to Florida State. Now, he says that he is 100% solid with Florida State. He's honored by the offer from Alabama. Might take a visit. Doesn't know yet. And, that's kind of the same thing with Milroe right now. He says he might take a visit. So we got to kind of wait and see who ends up visiting Alabama before we make a prediction on which quarterback they're going to sign. So, a lot of these guys could end up saying, they have offers, they have committable offers, but they may not ever even visit. So we'll just have to wait. Maybe they end up offering another quarterback a little bit down the road because 2 weeks ago we weren't talking about Luke Altmaier. Now we are because he got that offer. Who could they potentially offer next? We'll have to wait and see.
Okay, we got another one. This one is coming from Christopher Flakes, Deion Sanders' son, Shadori Sanders. We talked about this before. What's the latest on him and kind of what's his recruitment process like?
Well, I think I wouldn't say that Alabama is necessarily not recruiting him. I think there is some interest in him. They're just not necessarily, there's some other guys that are higher on the board. And even though those guys are committed, they're willing to wait on those guys before they make a move on somebody else. If they feel like they have a chance with Jalen Milroe or Luke Altmaier, they're going to wait on them. And frankly, they can because of the quarterback situation, as we just mentioned.
All right. Yeah. Okay. We'll take we'll just kind of chop it up for a little bit while we get some more questions in here. Hey, Bone. So when we look at this recruiting class, so you got 7 commitments on board. And I've asked you this before. I mean, is there a certain position that is critical to this class? Is it offensive lineman? Is it defensive lineman? What's kind of your assessment there on a certain position that Alabama certainly needs to hone in from the class of 2021?
Well, from the very beginning, I said that the biggest position of need on offense, wide receiver, offensive line. Obviously, wide receiver, they already have 2 commitments. Just got a big one this past week on the offensive line in J.C. Latham. And then you look at the defensive side of the ball. I always say you can never have enough quality defensive linemen. So always load up on great defensive linemen. But the biggest positions of need, in my opinion, in this class, inside linebacker and cornerback. Don't have any cornerback commitments just yet, but there's a lot of guys out there that I feel like Alabama's in great shape with. They can end up landing. And even though, like I said, they don't have any commitments right now, I think they're going to end up having a pretty special class in the defensive backfield.
Let's see. We got one. I think you've already talked a little bit about Malcolm Johnson committing this summer. Can you touch on that just real quick?
Yeah, Malcolm Johnson out of Virginia, one of the fastest players in the country. Had a great junior season. Definitely a guy that Alabama likes a lot. They're heavily pressing for. You look at these wide receivers that Alabama's interested in, and these guys are interested in Alabama. There's a big reason for that, and that's the development and the guys that they continue to put out in the league. I mean, Alabama had 2 first-round draft picks at the wide receiver position this past year. They're potentially going to have 2 more first-round draft picks next year. So it makes these wide receivers very, very interested in Alabama, and they're trying to look for who's going to be the next Henry Ruggs, who's going to be the next Jalen Waddle. And we talked about Christian Leary, Malcolm Johnson, right there with him in terms of speed guys. So I think there's a chance he could commit this summer. I also could kind of see him waiting until the fall and take some trips, kind of enjoy the process a little bit more. Alabama's in that top 8 right now. I think when he narrows it down, I don't know what he's going to narrow it down to. Maybe he narrows it down to a top 5. Maybe he narrows it down to a top 3. I think Alabama's going to be in this race for him until the very end.
All right. Yeah, that was another question that we got in on Malcolm Johnson, so I appreciate you asking that. Someone asked, you talked about the importance of, the corner position. Why do you feel the corner position is a particular area of need in this year's class? Can you elaborate a little bit more on that?
Yeah, well, I think Alabama's bringing in a junior college cornerback this year, and Ronald Williams, junior college All-American. You never know with junior college guys. Once they come in, if they have some success, they could potentially go in the NFL draft. Patrick Surtain, potentially a top 10 NFL draft pick this year. So, there's going to be a pressing need there. There's going to be a lot of opportunity for playing time. Alabama likes to rotate guys in. Last year they signed, like, Ronald Williams was a cornerback, but like I said, he could potentially leave. They signed some, really good safeties in last year's class. They really need to get another, some more corners. So I think that, the guys that they're recruiting right now, the guys that are out there, potentially some flip candidates out there. I think they've got a chance to really pull in some guys in this recruiting class and make a big statement. I mean, we talked about Kool-Aid earlier. Khyree McKinstry, he's obviously a big time target for them. Jason Marshall out of Palmetto High School down in Miami, another big target for them. There's some junior college guys that they're heavily recruiting that I feel like they're in the mix for. Jadarius Perkins, who's committed to Oregon right now, but certainly a guy that they've been recruiting and is going to probably visit Tuscaloosa this fall. Khyree Jackson, another guy that they really like a lot that just got offered a couple weeks ago, has recently set up a commitment date for July the 6th, and I believe it's July the 6th, and then has Alabama in his top 6. So we'll see when he makes a decision, but I think Alabama's got a great chance to land him. And like I said, there's some other guys that are still out there that Alabama's still pursuing, including Jordan Hancock, who's committed to Clemson. Certainly a guy that they have always loved, that they've always wanted. Obviously, the biggest hurdle there is Clemson doesn't let their guys who are committed visit other programs. Once you commit, you're committed. We saw Corey Foreman, the number 1 recruit in the country, commit to Clemson. Well, he wanted to take visits, so he had to decommit. Will Jordan Hancock potentially decommit? I don't think he's there right now. Could he potentially be there, in a few months? Maybe so.
Bone, and on BamaInsider.com this week, we're going to start talking about coaching Nick Saban versus the coaches in the SEC. And we start off tomorrow's series with Nick Saban versus Kirby Smart. If you could talk about some recruiting battles between those two that are taking place right now. We've talked about Amarius Mims. You've talked about a couple other guys. Can you talk about head-to-head guys between Nick Saban and Kirby Smart in this next recruiting class?
Well, there's going to be a lot of these recruiting battles over the course of the next couple of years, next several years. I mean, they've been taking place for a while. Alabama's won some battles, Georgia's won some battles, and the problem with Alabama is a lot of these guys that they're going up against Georgia for in-state guys for Georgia. A lot of top talent in the state of Georgia, as there is every single year. And we talked about Amarius Mims, T.J. Ferguson. Those are two big-time offensive linemen in the state of Georgia who Alabama's heavily recruiting, along with Georgia. And it looks like a top, tug of war between those, those two programs for those two guys. Dallas Turner, Xavier Sori. Those are two other guys that they're heavily recruiting, that they're both heavily in the mix for. Jaquincy McKinstry, I don't think it's going to end up being an Alabama-Georgia battle for him, but Georgia is in his top 5. So Kirby Smart coming into the state of Alabama, trying to recruit him. Jeremiah Williams, another in-state guy in the state of Alabama who has Georgia in his top 6 right now. So, definitely some interesting battles going on between Nick Saban and Kirby Smart.
All right, this one's coming in, Bone. This is from Tyler Mason. Appreciate the question, Tyler. Still feeling solid on Terrion Arnold.
Yeah, for those that don't know, Terrion Arnold, one of the top overall athletes in the country out of Tallahassee. Certainly a guy that Alabama wants to add in this class. Has offers from Alabama in football and basketball. So I just got a basketball offer a couple of weeks ago from Nate Oates. But I like Alabama's chances there. I think we're probably still a long way to go. There was some thought that he was going to commit this spring, maybe early in the summer. He's gotten a ton more recruiting attention since then. A lot of schools heavily coming after him. I think it probably ends up coming down between Alabama and Florida for him. He really likes Florida a lot, but I think Alabama's got a great chance. And I'm still leaning Alabama. Not making a prediction, but I'm still leaning Alabama with Terrion Arnold at this time.
All right, we got another one. This is another one from Michael coming in on Khyree Jackson.
Yeah, Khyree Jackson, as I just mentioned a few minutes ago, junior college defensive back, big junior college defensive back, 6'3", about 190 pounds. I'm sure Nick Saban would love to get his hands on him and work with him in the defensive backfield. It's going to be making a decision in July. Has Alabama in his top 6. I actually like Alabama's chances for them right now. He's a guy that I think Alabama's got a great chance to land. He's out of East Mississippi Community College, but as of right now, I think Alabama's got a really good shot to gain his commitment.
Update on Tanner Bailey.
Yeah, Tanner Bailey out of Gordo High School, has an offer from Alabama. I think they've got a chance, but he grew up an Auburn fan, grew up a diehard Auburn fan. Probably going to be tough to overcome. Auburn actually offered him a scholarship a day or two after Alabama did. Obviously these schools would have loved to have him on campus during the summer, but he didn't visit. So just have to kind of go on into the season, kind of see how things play out. But he did grow up a hardcore Auburn fan, and it's probably going to be tough for Alabama to get him, especially if they end up getting a quarterback in this class. After signing Bryce Young last year, if they get a quarterback in this class, I could easily see him ended up in Auburn.
Bone, we've got a lot of questions coming in about class of 2022. Who are some key targets when we look to next year's class?
It's
far out, but people are asking about them.
Yeah, there's a lot of guys that are out there. If I had to, the first guys that come to my mind when I'm talking about next year's recruiting class are in-state guys. And, Jeremiah Alexander, is already committed. One of the top players in the country, linebacker from Birmingham. Riley Quick, Pierce Quick's younger brother. Riley Quick is an offensive lineman over at Hewitt-Trussville. He's certainly a guy that keep an eye on. Doesn't have an Alabama offer just yet, but certainly a guy that I think could end up in Alabama's recruiting class. Curtis Perry is the defensive lineman from Park Crossing High School in Montgomery. That's another big name to keep an eye on. Robert Woodyard out of Williamson High School, kind of plays on both sides of the ball, running back and inside linebacker. I see him more kind of as an inside linebacker at the next level. Another Alabama legacy to keep an eye on is Caden Story out of Lynette High School. Christian Story's younger brother, Christian Story, athlete, Mr. Football in the state of Alabama this past year. Caden, a little bit different. He's about 6'4", 235-pound defensive end rather than a quarterback. So he's another guy to kind of keep an eye on. But those are some in-state guys, that I really like early on.
All right, we got Vegas Man. This is one of our subscribers on BamaInsider.com. We appreciate it, Vegas Man. He's asking, what's your gut on Jeremiah Williams?
Man, it's tough. I've been saying Alabama, but the more we see other linebackers commit, especially if Alabama gets Dallas Turner on board and Kendrick Blackshear, that gives Alabama four linebacker commitments. I just don't know. Jeremiah is heavily recruited by a lot of top programs. I know he likes Alabama a lot. I think it ends up being an Alabama-Auburn battle. I'm probably still leaning Alabama a little bit, but I could easily see him at Auburn. I know that sounds like a cop out, but you just don't know how the rest of this recruiting class is going to go linebacker wise, and you can only take so many linebackers. You can't take 6, 7, 8 linebackers in this recruiting class, even though you may want to. You just can't do it because you got to fill needs at other positions. So as of right now, Jeremiah Williams wants to enjoy the process. He wants to take it slow. He wants to take these visits in the fall. So a lot's just going to depend on where Alabama sits in October or November, whenever he does get ready to make that decision. And as of right now, I just don't know where they're going to be because they could easily have 5 linebacker commitments by then.
All right, we got a few more minutes. If you want your recruiting question answered right now by Andrew Bone, be sure and drop it in the comment box. And as I said earlier in the show, we read your feedback, and I know that the call-ins sometimes interrupt what Andrew was saying, and we don't want you to be, bothered when you're watching a recruiting show, right? I mean, it's just like anything that you watch. You don't want to be interrupted, and you want to have a high-quality product. That's what we're trying to provide right here on BamaInsider.com. So we do read your feedback, so we appreciate it. So more feedback in the comment box. We certainly appreciate it. Get your comments right now for Andrew in the comment box. Got a few more minutes. I saw a question down here. It was, I think it was by Charles Adams. Does Bama have serious interest in Dakota Mitchell? Mitchell said him and Christian Leary were a package deal.
Well, how these package deals usually go, it usually doesn't happen. I always hear kids say they're a package deal. Now the Brockermeyer twins, I believe it, but guys who were just teammates, I've been hearing it for years. I remember hearing it, several years ago when Jameis Winston, Quan Alexander, and Reggie Ragland swore every day that they were going to be a package deal. And Jameis goes to Florida State, Reggie goes to Alabama, and Quan goes to LSU. So I never believe these package deals. Maybe these kids end up committing to the same school, but at the end of the day, they're going to make their own decision. As far as Dakota Mitchell goes, defensive back out of Florida, out of the Orlando area. I don't see him in Alabama's class. I don't think Alabama's really pushing that hard for him at this time. Are they interested? I believe so. Now, if he would have been able to come to camp this summer, I think maybe his stock would have risen. But I don't see him as a real serious target for Alabama at this time. I think they've got some other guys that they feel like they've got a great chance to land a little bit higher on the board at this time.
All right, we got Bama Brett asking Kamari Wilson, is he going to IMG? Any chances on him?
Yeah, kind of the same situation. I saw that he was going to IMG earlier today. Kind of a wait and see, kind of still in the evaluation stages at this time.
All right. Well, good stuff. I mean, we've had an action-packed show tonight. We appreciate all the questions. Let's see, we'll leave it up a little bit longer. But we appreciate all the feedback right here on BamaInsider.com. Andrew does such a great job. You can have this every single day. Simply go to BamaInsider.com. Free promo code is simply Roll Tide, or you can just sign up for an annual subscription. We certainly appreciate it. The news doesn't stop on BamaInsider.com, whether it's team coverage, recruiting coverage. We cover it all at BamaInsider.com. You have a good time, Bone?
Oh yeah. Always fun to interact with our fans here on the show, and I love doing it every single week.
All right, so you recently just dropped 2 articles on BamaInsider.com. You had Who's Next, and then you have Flip Watch. What else can we expect on BamaInsider.com this coming week?
Well, we got a lot of great stories coming out. A lot of it's kind of guys that have been getting offers from Alabama this week. We've gotten some 2022 guys that Alabama's extended offers to that we're really focused on. I think we got another story dropping tomorrow on a 2022 guy, not 2020 guy. So keep an eye on that. And obviously, it's kind of business as usual. We drop stories every single day, and it's not just me. We've got a great team over there. Obviously, Kyle, but Tony Sakalis and Tyler Waldrop also do a fantastic job. And I encourage everybody to go on there and read their articles, because they're helping out on the recruiting end, big time right now. Getting a lot of updates and a lot of contacts. So we're having a good time over there.
Well, we hope you enjoyed the show tonight on Tuesday. You can catch us every single day at BamaInsider.com. For Andrew Bone, Kyle Henderson coming to you from Tuscaloosa, Alabama. Be safe, everybody. Take care of one another, and we will catch you soon next time right here on BamaInsider.com. Have a good night. We'll catch up with you soon.
Thanks, guys.